Thank you so much for doing this, Morgan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Happy to chat
Yeah.
marketing and metrics.
Yeah. It's a
I
big
like,
topic. It's a huge topic. And it like there's so much of it that I think just to start us off, like sorry to jump in here, Derek, but
yeah, do it.
I just had a workshop yesterday and we spent probably 70 or 80% of the time talking about metrics just because there's so many of them. And
So,
there are so many that we can invent, and there's so many new ones coming up from the digital platforms. And the big takeaway I think from a lot of people yesterday was the it really kind of depends. Like a KPI isn't just a KPI because you can get a number. It has to be somehow related to your business.
business outcomes and objectives. I think we'll get into it. I know some of the questions we'll cover today, but I couldn't agree more. There's so many metrics out there, and it's really about which are the right ones, when to use them for when, what's going to provide the most value or insight. But I'm not surprised it took up 70, 80%. I don't know if that was probably your intention in that workshop or not, but it's
Yeah,
definitely, it takes up a lot of time, I think, for a lot of us marketers, definitely at our team
totally.
as well. But we've kind of simplified and streamlined a few things at MNP over the years to provide a bit more guidance.
Yeah, well, I'd love to get right into that, actually. Why don't we talk about, MNP and, has there been a moment where the data kind of, said one thing, but your gut or, your colleagues' guts or your stakeholders' guts, all the guts said something maybe completely different? What do you do when that happens? When, data says one thing, but yourself and, your stakeholders may think another way?
Yeah, so I think it's all ultimately around context. That definitely happens a lot for us, and any of us as marketers, whether you're at a B2B or a B2C company, right? You have stakeholders, you have people that you need to have conversations with. But sometimes, I actually think that, challenging the numbers, having those conversations, right, around, data, metrics versus context, I think is really important, and that's how, you get that alignment and some of the best decisions are actually made. So the data tells us what happens, but the context, right, what we're seeing and the results of that data matters equally as much. So I think it is a bit about that, like push and pull conversations around balancing, the relationships that you have with some of your key senior stakeholders, but making sure that you're actually having the full like end to end conversation around, well, what is actually happening? What is the data? What are the metrics telling us? And I think some of the best situations where campaign performance data suggested that this was really successful, we should invest more here, right? But then you're having conversations with partners or people boots on the ground, right? And they're going, well, I'm not really seeing as much, uptick or results here. And you're going, interesting, right? Like maybe the value
Hmm.
isn't necessarily as impactful as I would have thought looking at some of, the kind of higher level metrics. And that's where you really need to have those conversations. So it's about understanding, right, the full story, market and implications of the performance of our marketing initiatives and making sure that we're aligned with the business.
I know one of the measurements in Google that comes up is the budget lost is like it's basically telling you there's never enough money,
Yeah, it's
which
true.
isn't always, yeah, go figure, hey? Which isn't always like one of those, it's context, as you're saying. Like you can't just blindly, that's an extreme example, but you can't just follow the numbers just because there's numbers. So it's not that there's data that matters. I love the conversation around context, I think.
Well, and I think just in that example, right, is that yeah, I think we could all spend an infinite amount of money, right? But I always remember, especially back in like the early days of digital marketing, or what feels like maybe the mid days of digital marketing, was always the tipping point, right? Like, where are we starting to see diminishing returns, right? And the data does tell us that. So, yeah, the platforms will tell us to continue spending money, but that's not the right decision. You need to be watching your investments and the performance of it, right, to see where are those diminishing returns. Are we getting more for what we wanted, right? For cost per leader, cost per customer acquisition, you know, area or perspective. And I think that that's where you could do that. And honestly, we could do that a long time. That's marketing. That's good old digital advertising 10, 20 years ago, right? And I would say now it's more about full visibility, right? And AI, and what are the performance metrics nowadays as consumers have shifted their digital trends. So I think that's where staying ahead a little bit on the curve of that will start to change or influence, I think, some of our reporting. It already has in kind of the AI era, but I think from a investment standpoint, and specifically digitally, but also I think, we can talk about brand metrics. I know today as well, and the importance of both of those, and where they fit in a reporting ecosystem for marketers.
Yeah, well, why don't we talk about it from an MMP perspective? Maybe, you know what, let's back up here and let me introduce you, Morgan. Can you kind of talk about your background, MNP in general, kind of, your company's approach to marketing and communications and all that? Let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely. Morgan Melnyk. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing Performance Data and Insights at MNP. Been here for over 12 years. MNP, if you guys don't know what that is, it's a professional services company, Canada's preeminent one. We've been growing significantly over the entire time I've been here, which is really exciting overall. Probably one of the
Strong
reasons.
correlation there, hey?
Well, I think so.
The
Probably.
growth in your presence.
Well, I can't take all of the credit for that. I would say it's a team effort, but joining a company that's fast growing was very exciting over 12 and a half years ago. Probably one of the reasons why I wanted to join. And then I would say, yeah, overall, there's a lot of great work that the company, the team, our marketing team does that really helps to support and enable that growth for sure. So I would say, yes, we definitely have a seat at the table and we help influence those results as well. But it's not just marketing. I would say it's the whole kind of business from top to bottom that is pretty excited to be a part of that. And business continues to change and we continue to change along with it, just like marketing, right? Marketing continues to evolve and change, has during my entire career, but really has ramped up, right, as my time here at MNP over the last 12 years.
Yeah, and MNP is part of the big four, right? Is it a
Well,
big
so
four
in
company?
Canada, yes. Actually,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
happy you said that. Sometimes, so I appreciate the comment. Sometimes I do describe it as that. So in Canada, we are kind of like part of the big four, big five in Canada. We are eating away at the big fours kind of positioning within Canada. They are still large in Canada. And specifically for us, part of our positioning and part of our business value to Canadian businesses is really being the voice of the Canadian mid-market, right? So privately owned enterprise and businesses. And yes, we do work larger enterprise companies, public sector, public companies as well. But the majority of our business expertise is in that what we call private enterprise space, and making sure that we really do understand and represent Canadian businesses from coast to coast. And that's really worked out really well for us from a business standpoint, obviously from a marketing standpoint. So yeah,
Hmm.
quite competitive against the big four. And sometimes for us, it's fine, right? So there's a lot of work that can be done from a professional services standpoint. So sometimes we share clients. So it's really just making sure that we're doing the right work that's right for us and playing nice in the ecosystem in Canada from a professional services standpoint. But we are big and growing and definitely nipping at the heel of a few of them. I'm not going to get into that on this
Hmm.
podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe like as we're sort of resetting, and it's funny because I just jumped right into the conversation because we know you, but I kind of forget sometimes when we're doing the podcast, it's not just for us, that other people are wanting the context. So thanks for that. And when we're thinking about the context also from a B2B lens, but also from a larger enterprise lens, maybe if you can just set up a bit of like we were talking about tech stacks in the pre-call and just thinking about like what are some of the tools and how do you strategically think about setting yourself up to be able to get good data?
Yeah. So I think, companies, marketers, we should all be avoiding the MarTech tax, right? Like you can just be spending money, right? A lot of money
Hmm.
on a bunch of different tools that may or may not be talking to each other. And they might be good tools, don't get me wrong. They might be really helpful in delivering some sort of an outcome or finding some time savings, right? But
Hmm.
really, it's around for us what technology follows and supports our strategy instead of having the fun, flashy tool first, right? Like, oh, I'm going to get this because it's going to do X and it's going to make me
Yeah.
faster, better, or drive performance, right? Or whatever the flashy sales line is, instead of taking a step back and going, okay, what do we need to solve here? What do we need to report on? What channels are we marketing on? And what platforms do we need to have to talk to our clients or potential clients? That's where we have to start. Always start with the strategy first and then just kind of going in there. And then as we're starting to evaluate tools, we definitely have technology tools in MarTech. What is the business problem that we need that tool to solve? What are
Hmm.
the business outcomes that are going to be driven to or attached to leveraging this piece of technology platform? And then for us, which I do manage our tech stack, I've been on a journey of consolidation over the years, of really consolidating and integrating our MarTech stacks and making sure like less is more. I would say that's a good thing in general, I think sometimes for marketers, but it
Mm-hmm.
very much applies to a marketing technology stack or MarTech stack. Just around because obviously there is some cost savings there, but also you realize better benefits as you're starting to integrate. So it's more about what is the marketing technology or the data architecture that we want to have. So CRM, marketing automation platform, CDP, analytics reporting, obviously AI now.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of purchasing them individually, right, which you can do, and integrate them, it's more around, well, what are some of those platform ecosystems? What are ways that are easier to integrate them? And it's more just having that journey. We're still on it. We've definitely been on it for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel at this point at MNP. A lot of the things are already working together. Platforms are working together, and it's more just around kind of optimizing and kind of that continual development and
Mm-hmm.
automation. But yeah, I would say don't buy software, invest in something that's going to drive business opportunity.
It's interesting. I was just looking recently. I forget the name of the site. It's like Chief MarTech Officer or something like that. But they report on the number of SaaS products that are available for marketing tools, and it goes back to I think it was like 2010 or something like that. And then there
Yeah.
was literally about 100, and now there's somewhere in the range of 15,000, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so it's really alluring and it's seductive, I think, because there's so many tools that promise so much. But it was really interesting hearing you say that you're consolidating. And so to try and have less to be able to do more is really an interesting tool approach, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's completely unique. I think I learned from other marketers as well and other thought leaders around out there and what are some of the better ways to structure it. But just overall, with how complex some of the platforms are, and really it's a lot of that underlying data, like thinking about the data architecture first and then platform second, or like, and again, maybe first, I should say, is the strategy and the plan and the outcomes. And then to achieve that, how do you do it? And then when you're evaluating, in this case, marketing technology systems, it's like, okay, well, what data do I need? Is the
Mm-hmm.
outcome that I need to have? Do I need to send an email? Track that email? Do I want to automate it in the future? So I think it's just about some of the functionality conversations, but really like what is that ecosystem we can drive bigger strategies. So for us, we want to drive omnichannel personalization. That's one of our key strategic pillars for our MarTech strategy. And
Mm-hmm.
but that's a strategy. And then I can talk about business outcomes. What does that mean for clients? They get a unique experience, right? That is interconnected on platforms, right? And I can
Mm-hmm.
probably speak to even more about that, but that's a strategy. Then when I take that strategy and I go, how do we apply it? What tools do we need? What are the channels we need to be marketing on to do that? What platforms are going to help enable that? That's the approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. It's such a this sounds like a beast of a project. Like you've got a Frankenstein stack of tools that costs a fortune and does who knows what exactly. I'm curious, how do you keep MNP stack with your colleagues, and how do you keep how do you make, well, not make everyone adopt it, but how do you encourage folks to adopt it? And I'd love to know, I don't know, your adoption rate as well for some of these tools that you're creating or not creating integrations for, but putting together here.
I would say now it's pretty strong, but it takes a while. Right? So it's around no difference than my earlier comments about when we're talking to partners in the business, right? Demonstrating the value. You're also doing that to the marketing team. Right? Like, what is the value of this? Is it a time saving? Is it going to be able to help you enable better conversations with the partnership at M&P or key senior stakeholders? And some of it is just modernizing the marketing function at a company, at a place like M&P. So it is a little bit of, hands-on training, obviously communications around value. Yes, it's not bumpy sometimes, and it is some of those growing pains is kind of how I would say that too, because as I kind of mentioned earlier as well, MFP's been growing a lot. So like in addition to growth comes, complexity, and some of that is, making sure that we're going back to basics on, what are we providing, what's the strategy, how are we enabling that through, obviously, in this call technology reporting or performance reporting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it does take time. Absolutely. It is a bigger project. I think we do benefit from having some of that less tools is more. We still have quite a bit going on, I would say, overall, but in comparison to having more tools, that would be more. So I think for us, it's a benefit. I would say that for other teams as well, of having kind of less tools is more. And I think we've just done a better job enhancing what we do have so that there's more value, both to the business but also as a marketer. And I think that that has helped, mitigate some of the need to go outside and look for other platforms, right? And a
Hmm.
lot of the value comes from those integrations because that's where you do start to realize some time efficiencies, insights, especially in the land of AI. Though the AI revolution over the last 2 years has kind of just been like, thank God we're on this path because it really helps set us up a little bit faster to start leveraging some of it. And we still have
Hmm.
a little bit of work to do to get to kind of the end goal that we want to, I would say, in the next year or so. But we have a pretty clear path to get there, which is great. And I think the team's excited. They're starting to see some of the benefits of that today. And then, yeah, AI as a tool, as part of our marketing technology stack, is ever evolving as well. And yeah, I think adoption is solid. Now it's more around, are we using it properly to deliver those, as I mentioned before, right? Business outcomes.
I wanted to take that idea of less is more and apply it to dashboard. So, you've got the structure in place, and fewer pipes coming into maybe your dashboard is maybe a way to describe that. There's things I know we've had conversations and done some training and whatnot around evidence-based principles and marketing effectiveness kind of things. There's tons of information around with all these different pipes coming in, all of them having different metrics and lots of them vanity metrics. And then there's a communication probably that you're having as you're transitioning from many different tools to fewer different tools. And then it's reflecting the dashboard a lot of times, I'd imagine. So I'm just wondering if you kind of stitch some of those ideas together and just talk a little bit about how you've kind of that conversation has gone internally when you have maybe fewer measures in your dashboard, probably better measures, and then how do you pick if you had to go if there's 10 before and you have to pick 5 now, like how do you think about some of that communication with other people?
Great question. I don't think we've fully solved it. So our dashboards are awesome. Honestly, we have a really great team that helps support them.
I'd
However,
expect nothing less.
yeah, I'm shocker probably. I'm very proud of them, to be honest, and our team that builds them and our team that uses them. And back to kind of that adoption question, I think we've seen a large uptick in adoption of leveraging our marketing dashboards, which is really great. However, there are a lot of metrics there, which I am going to diverge from me talking about how great our reporting is. But I like your comment around vanity metrics, and while we still need to report on some of them, I think it's more around, in my opinion, I've been spending a lot of time over the last in this role over the last few years around wanting to spend less time on vanity metrics. So like, let's kill vanity metrics. Let's report on some other levels. However, there is a place for them. So when I think about metrics overall, right, KPIs for marketing, I think about it in layers, right? So first layer is activity, so impressions, website traffic, email engagement, people word of mouth, right? That people have seen our
Hmm.
messages, like that's great. Top level, first level, really important. Second level is engagement, right? Are the right audiences that we want to target or talk to, are they actually like leaning in? Are they starting to engage with our content? So things like time on site, engagement rate, things like that. Are they subscribing to a newsletter, stuff like that? Third layer, business impact. Probably my theme of the day. I keep saying it, but I think that that's the importance of improving the value of marketing, and obviously, justifying investments into technology or investments into advertising is obviously the reporting from it. So business impact. So are we creating qualified conversations, right, with our clients or prospects, opportunities, leads, overall client growth for us or cross-selling services. Yeah, and then just revenue overall. And I think that are the conversations that we talked about earlier. The partners of MNP want to have more conversations around, right? That's what's really going to help drive the growth of
Hmm.
the business impact. So again, I don't want to dismiss impressions or clicks because we do report on them, and they are really important indicating first indicating values, right, to look at. But they shouldn't be the headline, right? The headline needs to be, what was the impact overall of this? How many clients did we engage with? How was that engagement, right? And some of it isn't always in the data or the numbers. Some of it needs to be in the context that we talked about earlier. But then, right, like some of the data is there, right? Are we tracking our leads through and qualifying them into opportunities? Are we taking those opportunities and making sure that we're marketing them towards close engagement where we can tie that revenue to it?
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a really good example you folks have at MNP. I just signed up for it actually, but the
Well, thank you
consumer,
for that.
yeah,
That's great.
the Consumer Debt Index newsletter is great. Like you've got some awesome resources, you've got some media coverage, and you're actually curating a lot of that media coverage as well. When you're, let's say, someone might be breathing down your neck for leads right now, this quarter, this month. But, something like Consumer Debt Index, it's educational, it's brand building, it takes patience, which, is something that not a lot of stakeholders want to give. So, you know, how do you connect all that visibility from let's say, the Consumer Debt Index, which I encourage everyone to sign up for, back to something like a partner, stakeholder actually cares about, like revenue?
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you for the shout out. That's my baby. I actually created that with our partner Ipsos having a glass of wine at the West End after an event.
Nice.
And we came up with a concept together. They've been a long time partner of MNP's, specifically, obviously running the index, but we've done some other work with them over the years as well. And it just shows the power of partnerships, right? And having some good ideas. But back to your point around the MNP Consumer Debt Index, big fan of it. And yes, yeah, it's not necessarily driving leads today, but it's about the strategy, right? So I always take a step back and go, what is the strategy? And you are right. It is a heavier top of funnel, right? Awareness, a campaign by design. It's not lead gen focused, but everything is in an ecosystem. I should just say, just for everyone's benefit, so our consumer insolvency practice at MNP is very B2C. So that is the one part of MNP that is extremely B2C. We do treat it separately, strategically on purpose, because we are talking to consumers directly, versus the rest of our services. So this strategy has been killer for us because we are generating a lot of media investment, right? So we curate some content, we promote it other, we put some ad dollars behind it to promote it, but then we do have a media strategy where we do see a lot of that benefit. And so the metric that we use to report on this campaign, mostly beyond impressions, but the one that we care about the most would be the return on media investment. So it's a little bit different, back to made up metrics that I really don't like to do, but this one is a little bit different, is that how much are we investing from a curation of the content and the research, and then our paid and earned media strategy. That number divided by what the estimated value of the media coverage that we've got. So all, how many times do we get mentioned, and then what are the impressions and the engagement from that. We have a calculation to estimate that. Then that's our investment value, and we go, wow, we saved a lot of money instead of going out there to have to buy to get all those eyes or those impressions. We're able to generate it ourselves using this strategy and save, in this case, probably 10x on average, give or take over the past. I don't even remember how many years the debt index is now, but over all the years that it's been running, probably 5 to 7 years off the
Yeah.
top of my head. So from a marketing investment standpoint, there's cost savings there for the return. And then to answer your question about brand though, and the lead gen, right? So that business is like, we need leads now all the time. I never have enough leads, which is
Yeah.
fine. That's the marketer's role to drive that. But this is part of the longer term strategy, right? Like know, like, trust, go kind of marketing
Hmm.
101, and it helps build awareness for people to know that we can help them with these problems that other people are facing, in this case from the debt index, and that we're here to help, so that when they have an issue, hopefully they don't, but if they do, right, that we're top of mind, right? So that they're
Hmm.
answer for conversion for us, and yes, then they are going to come through a different conversion pipeline, or a different process flow for us, right, from a reporting standpoint. So yeah, we're not going to necessarily know that they read a piece of debt index information on on a news site and then fill out a form on our website, yay. But it's that ecosystem of, if we can raise the trust level and the awareness of the brand overall, then it helps drives increased performance. And then that's where we tie back things to like market share, lead volume, and kind of correlate the two, right? If we stop today, which we won't, what would happen? We could do some estimation.
Curious, like, just to build on that part of the conversation, like, how important is it for you, or how challenging maybe, or I don't know the right way to say this, but ultimately what I'm trying to ask is, there's as Derek mentioned, a need for a lot of businesses to see impact now, today, this week, this month, this quarter, whatever the thing is. And so that leads to a sale. They need a sale, but marketing is not sales. But marketing activities get scored often as though it were sales. And so, and even sales, if you talk about a sales cycle, like you start to understand it doesn't happen just today. So I'm just wondering from a dashboard perspective, tying it back to the dashboard, how important is a timeline in your reporting calculation in terms of like not just showing the return today because it's a snapshot in time, but understanding the impact over a long time?
Yeah, good question. I don't know if we fully solved that. That's some of that integration work that we're doing today, where we're going to have more of that like 360 view. I mentioned earlier, right, like CRM, marketing automation, and CDPs. We're in the midst of integrating all of that, so we'll kind of have a better, more longer term timeline view. That being said, we can pretty easily take a look at like lifetime client value, right? What is the other, the first services that we're selling to companies as they're coming in, right? So we can evaluate values from there, and then correlate that back to marketing, of course. So I would say that's where we do some of that from a dashboard standpoint. And yes, marketing is in sales, and MNP. Most of our salespeople are partners, right? Or the people that are delivering the work, and teams that are doing the work. So really, our sales teams are the people providing the services, right? The trusted advisors to our clients and to business owners and decision makers. So for us, it's about enabling that. It's making sure that we're doing demand generation. It's, we're qualifying our leads, we're spending the time to do it, and wasting their time, right? Generating things that aren't qualified or relevant for them to be wasting time following up on. So we definitely overlap a little bit there. We're on a journey of being a bit more bottom funnel oriented and focused. Again, MNP has done a really good job, and our team has done a really great job of building that brand for the past 20, 60 years, right? So I think that we're fortunate that today we get to spend a bit more time optimizing it around a bit more of that bottom of the funnel experience and being a bit more connected to sales. And we do have some sales team members as well. And then I didn't answer the question for dashboards, but for dashboards, we have like our marketing dashboards, right? And marketing is responsible for leads at MNP. So we definitely have reporting around that. And then leads need to be qualified and handed off to be then qualified into an opportunity. Someone that is more sales oriented, so a partner, sales enablement team member, that needs to qualify and we do have reporting across that entire journey, and we are making some improvements to make some automations there. But yeah, we can do it. It's a little clunky today, but that's the journey on integrating it. The MarTech stack, but yeah, it is available. Some reports, and it's more around our teams are doing a great job leveraging those marketing dashboards, and that's how we leverage some of those bottom funnel ones, what we call dashboards, to make sure that we're using those as conversation starters too, or to drive in from to then go back and create marketing campaigns for it, start the whole process over again.
Just Derek, I just want to follow up on that real quick too, because there's that, especially what's I find always fascinating in B2B is there's that interesting handoff between marketing and sales, MQL to SQL, if you want to call it that. And there's like classic Glenn Ross thing, leads are weak, you're weak, that whole thing. But like, are you able to use some of the insights that you have as in terms of the SQL side and feed that back in to help better qualify and improve the kind of MQLs that you're getting?
Yeah, so for us, so yes, I would say early days on that, but that's the exact intention, is that we want to do a better job at nurturing our marketing qualified leads. So for us, we have a very well defined, and kudos to some of my colleagues for helping to do that. We've built together a very clear process flow for how a lead and at what stages in our CRM change from a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead and then into an opportunity. So one, do take a step back, understand the business process, make sure that you actually identify it and map it out, answer questions, communicate, because it can, and for us, it is a bit complex.
Yeah, for sure.
It sounds simple, but it is a little bit more complex than what I'm saying when we get into the operational
side
of things. And that is a bit of, change management and evolution as a marketing team around that. But once you know what the process is, then that's the intention, right? Is how are we better optimizing the campaigns based on the performance metrics? And there's a lot of things you can automate around that to help those different groups, right? How are we treating leads that are coming in that are disqualified versus leads that are qualified, and then leads that are actually a bit more interested or a bit more of a nudge? And then what are we doing with the ones that have a service opportunity identified, and how are we assisting those conversations? And that's a bit more account-based marketing approach and making sure that we're connected to the partners and yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. I do want to talk before we leave here because we're almost at time. Something that we found with the Calgary Marketing Association and our members is that speaking to finance folks about marketing has always been a bit of a challenge. So I thought I'd talk to you a bit about earning that seat in the stakeholder boardroom when you're in this like room full of partners who are kind of always thinking in P&L.
Yeah,
um, how do you talk about marketing in a way that actually hits them or lands with them, like in their language, not in ours? If you had, let's say, if you had one piece of advice for a marketing leader who's kind of drowning in data but can't prove it matters to leadership, what's the one thing you'd tell them to do differently starting, I don't know, today?
Try and remove as much marketing language as possible. Like back to my kind of comment around like less is more, and stop talking marketing to the leadership team, and really it goes back to my comment around like business impact, growth, really trying to get those numbers in there, right? Like they don't care about like impressions, right? At the end of the day, sometimes they do, so I can't say that actually. Sometimes, depending on the campaign, they actually do care about impressions, and it's
Mhm.
I would say in general, if you want a seat at the table to drive the conversations and provide that value and strategic insight and
Mm-hmm.
build relationships, right, with senior leaders at a company, yeah, like keep it simple, remove the marketing language. I hate to say it, but talk about like what does the performance mean? How did it contribute to business growth? Accordingly, right? So even if you can't connect the dot, right? Not a lot of marketers can, depending on your systems or expertise or whatever, right? But dude, that I would encourage the marketing team members and the marketing function to go, well, how can I correlate it, right? Is business going up? So I can go, hey, some of these stats are supporting some of these business insights that I'm seeing over here. Do they even have line of sight into those business insights, right, around revenue growth or client growth and stuff like that? Making sure that you have that line of sight and visibility into that, probably a really important place to start. I know I've talked to marketers through the CMA as well, and sometimes they don't, and that's part of like that first step, right, is making sure that you do have line of sight and the other metrics that the business does care about, making sure you have access to that, and then, like I said, kind of correlating it back to what the business actually cares about.
It's almost like we need to reverse the reporting. Start from outcomes first, and then we're back to not vanity metrics, but we're back to the digital metrics that we have.
Yeah, like literally, like, honestly, like executives, senior leaders, they don't buy marketing metrics, right? They buy business outcomes, right? That's what they actually want, and we want to see the business results, and that's what they want. And then you have to reverse engineer your reporting to go, well, how can I justify to get there, right? And what do we need to do to help drive?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Morgan, is there anything you'd like to celebrate or highlight or spotlight from an MMP standpoint and the work that you guys are doing?
Well, I think just proud of the team, obviously, overall. I think you picked up one of our recent campaigns, which is great, but we have a lot of exciting new things kind of coming up over the next year. Summer is a bit of a downtime for us. It's our strategic thinking side, and we're gearing both up for a pretty busy fall, and the team has a lot of really great campaigns kind of getting planned out and developed right now that I think will be exciting to see come into action. And for us, we've, like I said, I think we're all set up from a reporting standpoint, so I think we'll be able to do a good job of reporting on those campaigns and initiatives, and make sure that we can provide that value back to MNP and be able to communicate it to our leaders.
Amazing. Well, thank you
Awesome.
so much for coming onto the podcast. We really appreciate it. It's
My
been
pleasure.
months in the making, but we finally got you here, and I'm
Well,
stoked
good.
we got you.
Perfect timing. Thanks for having me, by the way. I appreciate that. Always happy to have a conversation with the Calgary Marketing Association, and appreciate the time today.
Yeah, this has been great. Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you.